Well, this week's Haftarah comes to us from Ezekiel chapter 43 verse 10, extending through to Yehezkel chapter 43 verse 27. The Haftarah and the Torah are called Tetzevah, you shall command. Tetzevah in the Hebrew, you shall command. And of course, pulling from the Torah parashiot, Shemot, Exodus chapter 27 verse 20, extending through Shemot, Exodus chapter 30 verse 10. I'll give you a little groundwork in the Torah parashiot before we get into the Haftarah, so that we can see the parallelisms and the linkages as we get into the text. So let's have a brief look in Shemot, Exodus chapter 27, in verse 20. The care of the menorah is how the Torah parashiot starts for us. And then we see that in Shemot, Exodus chapter 28, we get into the garments for the Kohanim, the ephod, the breastplate, etc., etc. And then in chapter 29, we see that Aaron and his sons are consecrated. And many, many instructions are given for us there in chapter 29. But I would like to focus on the altar today, because we are going to be looking at altars, sacrifice, altars, hot altars, cold altars. And where you stand in relation to the altar in the future will be your very life. Where you stand in regards to altars and sacrifices will be your very life. Very important that you make sure you make the right choice and get that straight now in a time of peace, because in Yaakov's trouble, the time of trouble and tribulation, the wrong choice could cost you your life. And the doctrines and rhetoric of men have caused many to side unknowingly with the ruach of anti-Moshiach. The spirit of anti-Messiah has come upon many unsuspecting brethren, and they've already made decisions. My hope today is that as we look at altars and sacrifice, that will be corrected, that there will be teshuvah, and people will make the choice to stand with Yahweh. Because there is no other place to stand but on the high ground with Yahweh. So in chapter 30 of Shemot, we see the altar of incense. You shall make an altar to burn incense on it. You shall make it of acacia wood. A cubit shall be its length, and a cubit its width. It shall be square, and 2 cubits shall be its height. Its horns shall be of one piece with it. And you shall overlay its top, its sides all around, and its horns with pure gold. And you shall make it a moulding of gold all around. 2 gold rings you shall make for it under the moulding on both its sides. You shall place them on its 2 sides, and they will be holders for the poles with which you shall bear it. You shall make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold, and you shall put it before the veil that is before the ark of the testimony, before the mercy seat that is over the testimony, where I will meet with you. Where will Yahweh meet with you? He tells us right here in the Torah that it is in relation to his altar. Let us now go into the Haftarah and see what we can dig out in Ezekiel chapter 43 verse 10. What we see is that Moshe in the Torah is what? A mediator over a new order of worship. There's a new order of worship. The Mishkan, the construction of the tabernacle, the instruction of the Kohanim and how they're to dress. This is a new order of worship that Moshe is the mediator of. Something that the Israelites had never, ever seen before. This is what Moshe is the mediator of, something new. A new order of worship. And in the Haftarah, Yehezkel is the mediator over a new order of worship also. It is the future millennial temple. The future temple. So we can see the parallelisms right there. 2 mediators over 2 new orders of worship. One back there in the Torah, the Mishkan, and one which has been brought forth, the Torah, into our lives today, and then projected into our future, the Beit HaMikdash, the temple of Yehezkel. It's in our future. It's so important that we understand what will be unraveled in the prophecies in these days to come. Yehezkel, the mediator over a new order of worship, the Beit HaMikdash. Both Moshe and Yehezkel stress the altar's axial significance in the believer's life. Let me repeat that. Both Moshe and Yehezkel stress the altar's axial significance in the believer's life. It is of utmost importance that we get it right. Of utmost importance that we get it right. Because it is what connects the Shamayim, the heavens and the earth, through the very substances that are consumed upon it. It's what connects the earth to the Shamayim. It is the very gate. The very ladder descends where? Right where Yahweh has set his name, where his altar will burn hot again in the future. Where we stand in regards to altars will be our very life. It's in our future. There will be a rebuilt altar up on the Temple Mount. And when do you think, looking at the scripture, when do you think that that altar would be dedicated? When do you think that that altar would be shut down? And when do you think will be the time for you to exodus from the nations? Because the scripture teaches us. We know in Daniel chapter 9 verse 26 that the abomination of desolation is when Anti-Moshiach walks across the Temple Mount to the Kanaf, it says in the Hebrew, or the corner or the wing of the Temple Mount, and walks into the abomination of desolation, which is the Alaska Mosque, where it is inscribed on stone that there is only one God who is called Allah, and he has no son. That is already the abomination of desolations that is up on the Temple Mount. And when somebody walks across and shuts down a rebuilt altar, that is the Assyrian or the Anti-Moshiach spoken of in the book of Daniel chapter 9 verse 26. This is in your future. But before an altar is made hot, and before an altar is shut down, an altar has to be dedicated. And how long is an altar dedicated for? 7 days it's dedicated. On the 8th day it becomes hot. How long is Hanukkah? It is 8 days. You have the 9th candle, which is the servant candle. 8 candles because it's 7 days of dedication, and on the 8th day it becomes hot. So when do you think prophetically that the altar could be dedicated? Around Hanukkah. So when do you think that the altar then could be made desolate? Sometime after that, when the anti-Moshiach, Haman, a picture of the anti-Moshiach, out to kill the people of Israel, would shut it down, would be around when? Purim. And what's after Purim? When you want to make sure that you come into the house and you are covered by the blood of the Lamb. Because the next thing you're going to be doing is exodusing from the nations to Eretz Israel. That's the shadow that the scripture teaches us. Hanukkah, a hot altar. Purim, the shutting down of an altar. And a future Passover. The greater exodus, according to Yirmiyahu chapter 23, of us coming out from the nations and going into Eretz Israel. This is our future. That is the shadow that the scriptures teach us to look for. To follow the shadows from the past, come into the present, to go into the future. So what is the setting of this Haftarah in Yehezkel? Well, Yehezkel, Ezekiel, is exiled in Babylon beginning in 597